Thank you so much for being on here. My name is Erin Green, and I have been a longtime friend and partner of Dairy West, not just because I'm a dietitian and I know the importance of good nutrition from that experience, but also my racing at a professional level in the sport of triathlon. So I got to learn firsthand what it's like to demand the most out of your body and how to support it with good nutrition. So today we are going to discuss those game-winning strategies to prepare you for competition, help you during competition or practice, and then help you recover after competition or practice. But first, here is a fun little introduction into my world of professional racing. Okay, so as you can see, it was quite a demanding sport. And I, again, firsthand what is required of my body. One thing I want you to get out of today is that you can't expect to get the best out of your body without putting the best into your body, which is why nutrition is so important. A lot of athletes, unfortunately, think that the hard work just ends on the field or on the court or in the weight room. But actually, you have to put really good fuel into your body so that your body can gain the fitness it needs and to just stay strong over the long term. So let's talk about what that looks like. We're going to start with some very basic overviews of basic nutrition and then move into the sport specific fueling with all of those foods. So starting with this is just a general overview of all of the food groups. You can see probably recognizing all of the main food groups that you're already familiar with. Let's talk about what each of these does for your body as an athlete. So healthy fats not only help to combat inflammation in your body, but they're also important for activity or low endurance activity at rest. So just sitting at your desk or laying on the couch, that is using fat for fuel. So fats are important to get into your body every day. Fruit, we know, has carbohydrate in it, so it's important for active fueling, but it's also a hydrating food. We tend to think of beverages as being what we rely on for hydration, but fruit is actually a very important hydrating food as well. Vegetables are another hydration food. And I have that word durability under vegetables. What I mean by durability is it really just helps your body function properly. It helps things flow and it helps you utilize other nutrients. So it's like putting oil in the engine so everything runs properly. Then we have whole grains and starchy foods like potatoes and beans and pasta and cereal and bread. All of those foods are like your go fuel. So that's what you use when you're actively moving and exercising. And then we have protein. Protein comes from animal foods like chicken, beef, fish, eggs, and dairy products. And then we can also get protein from plant foods like beans and lentils and quinoa. Protein is really critical for rebuilding. So think of carbohydrates being used during activity and then protein really being used after activity. It's really important to get enough of both of those nutrients so that they can do their independent jobs. And then hydrating beverages. Of course, you get hydration from fruits and vegetables, but you also get hydration from drinking beverages with your meals. So milk, water, 100% juice are all great options. Now, it would be perfect if we could all eat a nice, balanced, colorful meal like that multiple times a day, but we understand that that's not always feasible. And for athletes, you might even need more than that, even if you are able to eat those kinds of meals. So this is where snacking comes in. One way to look at snacks is how can I get the best nutrition per bite? So protein plus a produce combination is a really great start. Protein from nuts and nut butters, dairy products, even hummus, something like that, coupled with a produce, which would be a fruit or vegetable. So think of things like yogurt with berries or banana with peanut butter. Now, you could bump up the nutrition in that snack by adding a carbohydrate source because we know that athletes need more carbohydrates. So you might put some granola on the berries and yogurt, or you might put that banana and peanut butter on a piece of toast. So including snacks in your day is a really great way to fit in more nutrition and fill the gaps between those meals. I like to talk about underfueling here because athletes are very prone to being underfueled. What I mean is just not taking in enough nutrition to support the demands that are put on your body. So athletes are at higher risk of this because you are expending so much energy with your sport. Some effects of underfueling might be feeling really tired or fatigued, not feeling engaged or energetic during practice. Some athletes will notice a change in their mood where they'll be really dumpy or sad or even angry and irritable. We also see that performance in the classroom could dip if people are underfueled. And then there's injury and illness that can happen as well. So this is another reason why fueling and supporting overall health is important for you. So let's talk about how to prepare your body for competition and prime the engine. Everything we just covered is really important in getting ready for that competition day. Even if you don't have a tournament or a game or a meet coming up right away, you are preparing your body today for the competitions that are in your future. So keep that in mind. So how do you prepare as you really do get close to that competition in the days or hours leading up to it? Well, we know that fueling yourself every day in a really positive manner is important, hydrating well, and then getting adequate sleep and recovery. For a pre-game meal, about 3 to 4 hours before the competition, you want to have a nice high carbohydrate meal. You want to keep it relatively simple and with foods that are familiar to your body so that you can predict how your body is going to respond to digesting those foods. You want to give yourself enough time that your stomach processes those foods and gets all the nutrients in your system so then your stomach doesn't have a lot of food left in it when you're trying to work out. Of course, fluids are important, and we're going to talk a little more about hydration in just a minute. What happens when you get a little bit closer to competition? Like say you're about an hour out. You could still have a combination of foods, but you want to keep the portion size a little smaller, and you definitely want to keep the foods simpler. So having a little combination like apple and peanut butter or some trail mix might be a great idea. You could just drink something like a chocolate milk. Veggie sticks, pita chips, and hummus are all ideas that would be a small enough portion and have mixed nutrients, and you could probably digest it in an hour. Less than an hour to go, maybe 30 minutes before exercise, you might want to have just a piece of fruit on its own, or you might want to have some graham crackers or pretzels, even a container of yogurt, something that's really easy to digest and you know that your body tolerates well. All of these recommendations are individualized. So I encourage you to try some different things and find out what works best for you. Let's talk about fueling on the road. So if you have to drive or fly to a competition, or if you go directly from class to practice, there's some options that you can keep in your backpack or take with you to stay well fueled. So granola bars and trail mix are wonderful ideas. You could take a shelf-stable milk. On a plane, you could take some protein powder that you could easily mix with water when you have that available to you, or there's jerky, pretzels, options like that. In the car, I recommend really utilizing a cooler and having, some cheese sticks, maybe a sandwich or something that you can take with you that has that can be refrigerated and kept cool. So let's talk about fueling your body during performance. Some people may not have to fuel during performance, but hydration is probably the number one thing I would recommend. We see performance start to suffer even with a small amount of dehydration. So especially as we're heading into warmer months, it's important to pay attention to this and make sure you are replenishing the fluids that are used during exercise. One easy way to look at that is you can see the urine color chart that's on that slide there. Really, it's just if your urine is pale and very light in color, it means you're well hydrated. As it gets darker or brighter in color, it probably means you need to pay a little more attention to hydration. Do I have to fuel during exercise? Well, it really depends. Does the competition last an hour or longer? Is it in extreme heat or is it high intensity? These kinds of factors are different for everybody, and you might want to just take a look at your own practice and competition setting and determine if it's right for you. Also keep in mind that in tournament situations, or if you have a track meet, anything that is long span of time where you won't necessarily have access to proper food and fuel, you might want to take something that is easy to digest and carbohydrate based and helps replace fluids during that competition. So here's some options. Sports drink provides everything. It's got the fluid, it's got the carbs, it's got electrolytes. Sports bars, and then some of those other sport foods like gels or chews or the little sport beans, those all have strong carbohydrate sources as well. And I encourage people to kind of play around with some of these and find what works best for them if you're doing it during competition. And then there's just food, some of the things we talked about already: bananas, applesauce, pretzels, all of those things that you could try during competition, just have in your backpack or on the bleachers or wherever you have access to it, to make sure that you're well fueled during your practice or competition at longer durations. Let's talk about recovery. I want you to think about these 4 R's of recovery. We want you to rehydrate. Your body uses fluid for a lot of different things during activities, so it's really important to get that hydration in your system. Refuel, we want to restock carbohydrates so that protein can then rebuild and do its job. And then we need you to rest and recover and give your body the time to put all of that nutrition and hard work into practice. So rehydrate, refuel, rebuild, and rest. Let's talk a little more about protein, because protein has a really primary role in the body of rebuilding and restocking everything. So your muscles and your tissues, they get broken down when we work out. So you really need protein to help rebuild them. Different food sources have different kinds of protein. So we talk about amino acids. They're just the bricks that kind of make up the protein. So they're the little building blocks of all the proteins. Different foods will have different kinds of amino acids in them. That's why it's important to get a variety. And then during competition, your body really doesn't need protein to be well fueled and to perform. The protein is used after competition to help rebuild things. So it's really important to get the carbohydrates during competition and then some after with the protein to help restock. Here's an example of some protein sources. And again, you can have animal-based or plant-based protein sources. Just know that they will have different amino acids and will work a little bit differently in your body. So beef, fish, chicken, dairy, eggs, those are all animal sources of protein and will have a more complete amino acid profile than some of the other plant sources. Beans, tofu, quinoa, seeds, nuts, those are all examples of plant sources of protein. I tend to recommend that you just get a mix of all of them and make sure that you get a good variety and time it for after your practice or competition. So just to wrap up here, remember that athletes are built on everyday nutrition, and it will help you in the long game. It helps with long-term health. It's day in and day out. It's not something you can just, cram for that final test right before your game. You have to practice good nutrition daily to support the demands of your body. And then make sure that you keep in mind before, during, and after competition, and be prepared for what you might need, and have a balance on your plate. Refer to some of the handouts in the Greatness Guide. They have some really great options for building meals and building snacks so that you are well fueled and have balanced nutrition.